Today, we're diving into the world of mystery and deduction with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's A Study in Scarlet, the novel that introduces us to Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John H. Watson. Stick around. Welcome back to Kevin Toll Reads, where today I'm talking about my review of A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, published in 1887. It first appeared in Beaton's Christmas Annual in November of 1887. It actually came in book form the following year in 1888. This mystery introduces us to Sherlock Holmes. So a summary of this is obviously, again, A Study in Scarlet, the first novel by Conan Doyle featuring the iconic figure of Sherlock Holmes and John H. Watson. Their mass appeal of bromance. This novel introduces us to, the eccentric Holmes, the more common John H. Watson, and their kind of bromance. This, the really meat of the story begins when Watson returns from Afghanistan. He's meeting a friend, an acquaintance, and then he mentions needing a place to stay, not a lot of funds. And he's like, oh, lo and behold, I know of another gentleman that's looking to take on a roommate that they can find a place. And he's kind of eccentric. And that is the start of Watson meeting Holmes. Watson's very intrigued by Holmes. Obviously, he likes his methodical approach to solving problems. They soon become involved in a murder investigation. Lestrade and Gregson, I believe, the Scotland Yard folks who are trying to make headway on the investigation, not getting far. And lo and behold, Sherlock starts uncovering things in his investigation, and doing so in a very kind of random, out there way. And it only kind of makes Watson appreciate Holmes's abilities. The case they take on centers around a mysterious murder in a locked room where the victim, Enoch Draper, is found dead, but there's no clear motive. And it has Holmes kind of applies his observational deductive skills. The case leads him to uncover kind of a larger conspiracy involving a complex history of revenge from none other than the American West and a group of Mormoners who are establishing the religion and their claim out in Utah. And so what did I enjoy about this? Well, obviously it's an origin story. So that in of itself is always interesting. Now we're talking, Sherlock Holmes and John H. Watson. So that leads itself to be interesting as well. It's the first time we get to meet them. There's definitely a little more character development in this, a little more nods to some different things that you don't normally get in the other novels and tales in Sherlock Holmes. And so I really appreciate that. There is a very interesting structure to this story. Mainly the tales in the other novel I read, The Hound of the Baskervilles, you get a certain kind of structure that you're kind of accustomed to when it comes to Conan Doyle. There's someone in need of assistance from Holmes, or the police are needing assistance from Holmes. Holmes gets details. He does his thing with Watson, and lo and behold, they find out who it is, and then we get the kind of why and the how kind of stuff at the end, and it's all wrapped up in a nice little bow. This one is very different in the sense that it's really two parts to this novel. The first part is the introduction to Holmes and Watson. You get the introduction to the investigation. You're trying to figure out what's going on and who did it and why. And Holmes believes he's got the person. And then you flip into section 2 and you're in the American West, and you've traveled all the way across the pond, to speak the parlance. And you're meeting a young girl, and a guy who are next to death in the middle of the American West. It's very jarring. It's very, very jarring. And I have to be honest with you, I was pretty put off by that, because I almost thought, like, did something happen with my Audible recording? Because I was listening to this on Audible. Like, maybe this is not right. And I did a little research. Yeah, there is definitely two parts to this, and it is very different. What I enjoyed, though, was how Conan Doyle makes this work. I don't think a lot of authors could have made this work, but he does. As we get to in the first part, or the towards the end of the first part, Holmes believing he's caught his man, he knows who's done it. Then you drastically jump over into the American West. I started to realize, oh, this is all of the backstory that's going to lead me to the how and why and who. And it does. And it does in an interesting little story. I mean, it kind of organically unfolded for me, and I kind of enjoyed it. I got to be honest with you. I also enjoyed a couple other things. Obviously, you have a justice revenge theme here. I think Jefferson Hope's quest for revenge and wrongs that he felt were done against him, I think is very interesting. I liked the Mormon religion, some of the just nonsense stuff around it and how it affects Lucy and her father. I thought that was really interesting. I really just enjoyed kind of the structure. At first, it was like I didn't like it, and then I was like, as I got deeper into it, I was like, I kind of like this. It was almost like the story did a 180. I almost, as a reader, did a 180 on this as well. I did have one extra I thought was really interesting. It was in the first half of this where Watson and Holmes are still getting to kind of feel each other out, know who's what makes them tick. Watson is observing Holmes, and he says, leaning back in the cab, this amateur bloodhound caroled away like a lark while I meditated upon the many-sidedness of the human mind. And Watson's kind of like, Holmes is just kind of out there, not really caring about much on the surface, and he's more interested in this violin concert. And Watson's like, he should be like every moment, focusing on what's going on. And it's kind of shocking, like the differences between the personalities. And that I thought that was a really good excerpt that kind of showcases that. In terms of rating and overall, I gave this a 4.3. I thought it's a great story. It's very solid. I enjoyed it. I thought it's definitely a must read for Holmes fans. Again, I'm still getting through the original Conan Doyle works, and this is definitely a jarringly different one, but in a good way. I really like the backstory. I really like the Mormon religion aspect of it and how it plays into this story. Obviously, I liked learning a little bit more about the origin of Holmes and Watson. But this is a must-read for fans of Sherlock Holmes, and I really enjoyed it. One last thing, A Study in Scarlet, obviously, there's a lot of conjecture about the title. Is it meaning like a study about blood or study about murder? And there's not, I don't think, one train of thought that's necessarily wrong when it comes to, what you think that may mean. I mean, there's definitely not an end-all, be-all definition towards the meaning or use of that title by Doyle. But I thought it was really interesting that people that are in the Sherlock Holmes universe that enjoy Sherlock Holmes and Doyle's works, they still have their own kind of perspective about what that title means. For me, in my opinion, I think it's definitely has to do with a study about murder. The Scarlet obviously meaning blood. Some people draw some deeper conclusions to that, but I thought it was interesting that the title of this story also provokes some interesting opinions as well. But that's my take. A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, published in 1887. I gave it a 4.3. Really glad I enjoyed it. I recommend you read this book, especially if you're a fan of Sherlock Holmes or wanting to get into Holmes. I think this is a great novel. So that's my take. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you all on the next one. Thanks.